Okay, we have a small group of faithful here. Okay. Okay, we'll begin. I may have done this even last week. I know I've been doing it with you people. I'm going back. So then we'll just try to go quicker. Reading from the Bṛhad-bhāgavatāmṛta. Book 2, Chapter 2, Text 169. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. śrī-bhakti-śāstrāṇy ūcuḥ. labdha-brahmādhikāredaṁ. mahā-gopyaṁ nidher api. bhavat-sad-guṇa-sandohair. ākhyāmo mukharī-kṛtāḥ. The devotional scriptures said, O dear one, who have achieved the post of Brahmā, this topic is more secret than a rare treasure, but we shall explain it to you because your abundant good qualities inspire us to speak freely. We went over this verse somewhere. Purport in text 169 through 230, the Bhakti Shastras answer. Since Gopkumar holds the post of Lord Brahmā, he is worthy of the privilege to hear such elevated topics. One might argue that the secrets of devotional service should not be freely divulged to anyone, not even the Lord of an entire universe, unless he's fully surrendered to the Supreme Lord and his devotees. But then Gopkumar's personal qualification should be taken into account, especially his eagerness to engage in the Lord's service. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gananjana Chaksurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Sapadantikam Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhayevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasade Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare. So I think looking at our glorious audience here, I'm seeing the people that are attending. So Gopkumar is teaching us by his example and his explanation of his life to the mature Brahmin, how we move forward to the ultimate objective of Krishna consciousness, which is Braja Bhakti and Vrindavan. And one thing that's apparent is the most important thing is faith. And faith kind of has two aspects. One is what I call, what I've quoted that Christian apologist, faith is trust by experience. Your faith due to this experience. So he had that experience from initiation and from living in Vrindavan, that the highest objective was somehow connected with this sweetness and connection to God, specifically in the revelation of Madan Gopal or Brajendranandana Krishna. He doesn't have another type of faith, which is Shastriya Shraddha, faith in the scriptures, because he has never read them and he doesn't know them. Therefore, he's not able to go directly back. He's kind of in an experimental stage, but in his travels, we see so many qualities that are essential in our spiritual development: simplicity, detachment, faith in Guru, faith in mantra, and that feeling in the heart. So we're up to the part, and we also see the transcendental system, how God deals with the soul by making. That's why when you have faith, one of the aspects of faith is God that will protect you, which means you have faith that he'll do what's best. So God does what's best, and it's hard to accept sometimes, but there's a plan to elevate our consciousness. And at least as devotees, we should have that experience. We should have that experience that our lives and our experiences and all our experiences have brought us to a higher level of consciousness. And therefore, what is happening to us now is also the same plan. We tend to only have faith in God's plan when he facilitates us being the enjoyer and controller. Then we say, why is God doing this? But anyway, God has a plan. And one of the plans is really sometimes is that his kind of karma, I guess it is, he winds up in these big positions. And when he winds up in these big positions, we see a very beautiful thing, that he never loses his simplicity and devotion. I often think of, I think I was talking to Dhanurdhara Swami and thinking what a wonderful Vaishnava Srila Dhanurdhara Swami is and how successful he is. But I think he once said one of his successes is his detachment. Because even in Chowpatty, where literally there are billionaires at his feet, literally some of the richest people in the whole world. This Mukesh Ambani, he's like maybe, top 10. I once calculated these people, if they get like 3% interest, they're making $5 million a day or something. And he had his wedding of his daughter, and, Clinton and Gates and all the biggest people in the world came. But when he came in, they were saying, who are they offering respect to? I was once getting an operation in Mumbai, and he called me up. He's having a program, and it was just, well, there were two. I mean, it was the Birlas, who are fabulous, and they're sitting at his feet. But yet, he lived in the brahmachari ashram and slept on the floor. So that kind of nadanam, najanam, the sundarim, kavitam, vajagadisha kame, that we're not really interested. That's real. So that simplicity, and therefore it was hard for him to get entangled in the conception that I am the enjoyer and controller, because he never desired it. And his energy, that control and enjoyment. Control, because enjoyment means when the objects of the senses are in our possession. So you want accoutrements of power to do that. You want wealth, you want beauty, you want education, but no, he was so simple and so attractive. And he never got entangled. But at the same time, he was not happy with it either. management. If you have to do management, you have to do management. It's your nature. That's how you'll be purified. But it's a headache and it's distracting. But Krishna has a way. We really want the appreciation of Guru and Krishna. And they really appreciate devotees who struggle to attain them. That's why previously, I think we were reading here, maybe. Yeah, we were reading here. Did we get to Bṛhad? Maybe it was another class. Bṛhad, when Lord Shiva I think Lord Shiva told him to go to Bṛhad and said that Lord Bṛhad is high. He's quoting so many verses. Lord Bṛhad is higher than anyone, higher than Balaram, higher. He was giving all these higher. And then the purport was that Krishna appreciates those who struggle and show their sincerity in that way. He appreciates that. So I think of all my God brothers and the headaches and everything they have, and Krishna is very pleased with them. I remember, this is just a personal story, is when I was in Vrindavan, one of my teachers, on the day off, went to the British Council Library and met the principal of the Indian Military Academy, which is like the West Point of India. And I got the card and I went and visited the principal of the Indian Military Academy. Very prestigious thing. And I preached him and I actually brought him to Krishna consciousness. He actually joined this God. But I remember when I was coming back on a bus, I gave a class to some people and telling them that Bṛhad once said, everybody, you get everything here. Hemlata Radha's, got down, she's going to help get some of the things we need here. She's got down the Amazon.com system. So things, you can get anything. But initially, it was so austere here that there was no phone. There was one phone in Vrindavan at the police station. And that phone is the only phone. There was at least one phone that you can call outside of Vrindavan. I'm not even sure there were phones in Vrindavan. We didn't have them. But there was one phone that you can call outside of Vrindavan. And that phone had to call Mathura. And Mathura had to call Delhi, and Delhi had to call the country. It was really impossible to get through. It was really impossible. One car in all of Vrindavan, one taxi in all of Vrindavan, no electricity. So anyway, I went up there preaching, and we never took a taxi. We never took a plane, never. When Bṛhad Prabhu was the chairman of the GBC and he went to the Mayapur meetings, second class train, 2-tier, not even AC. That's the way it was. So I remember I was coming back and I felt so happy that I preached to the principal of the Indian Military Academy, and I'm sitting in the back of a bus and it's hot and sandy and dusty. I think I'm probably carrying my dunda, and I think I'm between like an old lady and an old man who are coughing and probably have tuberculosis, and I'm sitting in the back of the bus. I felt satisfied, that this is, I'm satisfied that I can show this is love. This is love. Like Prabhupada in 26 Second Avenue, when it was such a low-class neighborhood, and he was living there. And there's a tape from 1966 saying, "Why have I come here? Why have I come here? Why have I come here?" And he said, because it was the order of my spiritual master. So Gop Kumar has that natural sacrifice. But anyway, he has that faith, that's his goal, not to be the enjoyer, not to be the controller. That's bhakti. Tasyeva heto priyateta kovido taladyateya. Those who are intelligent don't wander in all these directions, the power, control, etc. But it's nice to have our basic needs. So Gop Kumar, so he's at now Satyaloka, and he actually, it's the other thing is, mantra is Gopal mantra is very powerful, and it can carry to your destination. But you should really develop an intense spiritual desire, and it's really what carries you to your relationship with Krishna. It helps carry you there. So, yeah, he develops these desires in relation. So he saw when he went to Satyaloka, this little enclave where Brahmā and Mahavishnu had such an intimate relationship. Lord Brahma, God is teaching Lord Brahmā the Shastra, and as a teacher asking him to revise it and repeat it and seeing that he understands it. This anugraha, this mercy comes in the form of teaching. It's one form of love. It's parental love. It's teacher love. Anugraha comes in form of instructions, in form of teaching. And he desired it, and then somehow or other, something happened to the Lord Brahmā. We talked about his post-traumatic stress disorder, when the universal devastation, there was a foam and he touched it, turned into a demon. And then he's there, and he has kind of this dissatisfaction, but it can't stay so long because he has this intimate connection with God that's so satisfying. And anytime he gets an anxiety, the goddess of Lakshmi cuddles her, like a son. But then he hears they're talking about liberation. That's what's happening now. He's asking, what about, he heard the glories of liberation, and he's so simple, right? He didn't know who Brahmā was when he was on Tapaloka. Now he doesn't know what moksha is. And then the different scriptures who came there when there's a universal devastation, some of the sages from Mahaloka and Tapaloka, and the personified Vedas, the personified Bhagavatam, the personified Agamas, Upanishads, and we're in this point where this debate's going on, and Gop Kumar's, because he asked, what is this liberation? And there was a discussion between different shastras which stressed different things, and the resolution was, it was about liberation. What is liberation, and how do you get liberation? Well, there's a first part of liberation, muktir hidvayata rupam. You give up the external form, the false identity, I am the body, with its upadis, the particular designations. We may work through our designations. I'm a woman, I'm a man, I'm a Kshatriya, I'm a Brahmin. But ultimately, we're working through them to transcend any designations. Upadis, they're called. And what is bhakti defined in Narada Pancharatna? Sarvapadi, veneer muktam. You give up all these designations that name you and identify you as something other than dasa dasa anudasa, gopi parta bhatta kamala dasa, anything else, and getting rid of those. So how do you do that? Because that's the source of suffering, because the example is there of the child who's given the pot. He wants the moon, the mother gives him a pot of water, the moon is reflected, and then he can't hold it. So when it begins to shake, he becomes an anxiety because he thinks something's happening with the moon, but it's not happening with the moon. He's misidentified the reflection in the water as the moon. So we misidentify the temporary body as the self, and we suffer due to its vikara, its transformations, but they're not actually happening in the self. And there's 6 transformations. You're born, well, generally 6. You're born, you grow, you maintain.
Reproduce.
What?
Reproduce.
Yeah, I know. Please don't interrupt me like that. I was thinking whether I want what I want to say when I want to say it. So there's 6 transformations. You get old and you get die, and they're happening not in you, but so liberation is freeing yourself from this kind of illusion and suffering. And you'll see that different schools will define what actually it means to this kind of thing. So there's basically 2 processes to do it. One is analysis, an understanding. Another is a superior attraction. One is more positive than one is negative. And so this jnanic process, and the bhakti process, they say that it happens automatically. Not automatically, but just with a little effort. You don't have to undergo excruciating, because jnana is accompanied by vairagya, an understanding you're not this, and then you have to actually act on that platform, and it's very difficult. And we described last class in the how even the first step of samadhi, and this increasing focus, and the first step is something like 130 or 127, near an hour and a half of focus on an object with absolutely not any other thought getting in your mind. And that's the first step. And there's 7 other steps. The second step, meditating on the object without conception of the object in your mind. And then the other steps, you just have to realize it to explain it. So they're very focused at those who are jnanis that this is the way. But the bhaktis say, Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Piyojita Janayasu Vairagyam. That automatically it happens. It means with a little effort. You're practicing devotional service. You're getting a taste of serving God. And then you understand, you get a little second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, a little philosophy. And you can, if someone is actually practicing, bhakti can be completely automatically detached. So now the bhakti-shastras are going to explain that in about 70 verses. They're going to explain that. I'm studying with Dhanurdhara Swami the later chapter, and there's different distinctions that have to be made to understand bhakti. One is that seeing God actually before you is superior than God appearing within the mind. And that the best process to do it is Nam Sankirtan. I was marveling with Dhanurdhara Swami how Sanatana Goswami took the instructions that he got from Lord Chaitanya that's mentioned in the CC, and then this is his commentary on it. He just expands it. And it's so clearly it's so clearly Lord Chaitanya's teaching, and so clearly what Prabhupada gave. Nam Sankirtan. Because they say Smaran is only good in the absence of God. But Nam Kirtan is good in the absence of God and the presence of God. And Nam Sankirtan is the best process to actually remember God. To purify the heart and actually to remember God. So these distinctions are made. This is, I was describing, this is just a story that in the community I had, some of the two people married to my disciples, they left their guru and took initiation in Radhakund. And they were nice people, they weren't, but naturally, with the internet at that time and the threads, they were promoting that, they were the real traditionalists, etc. And I remember, and there was a preacher there that was impressing them. And I went to speak to him. And, anyway, it was a whole thing. And then I wrote a paper called śrī-bhakti-śāstrāṇy and Raganuga Sadhana to show that the process of Nam Sankirtan, Taramadye Sarva Shreshte Nama Sankirtan Nira Aparade Poyapa, of all the 9 processes, the chanting is the best. And I showed shastrically how, and it was translated into Spanish, into Russian. I showed how this process of focusing on Nam Sankirtan is the best process to invoke remembrance of Krishna and develop. And we're going to get to this, it's so clearly presented, the superiority of Nam Sankirtan. And I remember what happened, it was very interesting. At that particular time, I found a book called The Nectarian Glories of the Holy Name, of a recent Vaishnav scholar who was connected to some of the greatest Siddha Mahatmas that lived. There was one, Siddha Krishnadas. He wrote this book, I think I have it, Radha Krishna's Pastime, because it's very advanced. And I was listening to Hari Parshad on Nam Rasa's podcast. I don't listen to Nam Rasa's podcast unless there's someone like him on there. And they mentioned such an interesting thing, that none of the Gaudiya Math chants the Tulsi prayers. And the Tulsi prayers is a very advanced meditation. Radha Krishna Seva Pavo, Seva Adhikar, my desire is to serve. What?
They said it's Rasik,
Very Rasik, and it is. And where it was gotten, it was written by this Siddha Krishna Das. So the way Prabhupada put together what we have is very interesting. They don't have Guru Puja every day in the Gaudiya Math either. No. Prabhupada, his way of inspiring Guru Nishtha and foundational principles, and the foundational principles are not foundational. I found that out when we were studying the 20th chapter of the Sikshastakam. And when it got to the last verse, Ashli Shiva Pararatam Panastubam Adarshanam Mamahatam Karot, you may make me brokenhearted, you may cry, but you're my master. And I was reading this, and this was the culmination of the mood that Lord Chaitanya, that Krishna came to get, and why he had to become his devotee. He wanted the mood of an experience of Srimati Radharani. And the culmination of that mood is this verse, and then Krishna's Kaviraj explains where this verse comes from. Krishna, he disappears from Radharani, he goes with other people, other ladies, other gopis, Chandravali and things, and then Lalita, a little bit strong with Radharani, give this guy up. Give this guy up. And then it's a śrī-bhakti-śāstrāṇy. In other words, it's the ultimate selfless mood, as the ultimate platform of Radharani's love. And Srila Bhakti-siddhanta makes a commentary that it's really the deepest mood of Srimati Radharani is actually the foundational principle of bhakti, mature to the highest degree. So when you think in that sense what Prabhupada gave, that mood of Guru Nishtha, that mood of surrender, and that focus on Nam Sankirtan, combined with the Tulsi prayer every year in the morning. So anyway, this particular verse, anyway, he says, I can explain this to you, confidential things, right? We discussed this many times. Confidential things are things that you have the frame of reference in your heart to understand, and you don't express them easily because other people don't have that frame of reference. And when people don't understand you, or they misinterpret you, they can get misconceptions of you, they can exploit you. So confidential things are not just but no, he said, I could speak to you because of your faith, your trust. Without faith or trust, we don't make the effort to find out things that are beyond our understanding. And if you want to be enlightened, there's a lot of things that are beyond our own frame of reference. If you don't have faith in where they're coming from and who is giving it, you can never know them. So he says that. And then we who are dedicated to the personality of Godhead's devotional service may sometimes discuss liberation, but only to encourage people to reject it completely. When we speak of liberation, we condemn it and everything that goes with it. And we explained this before, because it's a personal desire. And bhakti is love. Bhakti, the first principle of bhakti, think of others before yourself. And I always tell this story of this one staunch brahmachari, and then he got married and shared his realization, the world is not just about me. That's the basic principle, and the ultimate principle is love. And the ultimate love is universal love. So liberation is not love, it's about me. It's about me and my suffering and wanting to get free of suffering. It's okay, but not for bhakti. Anyabhilashita shunyam, no other desires. Jnana, karma, jnana, not covered by jnana or karma. It says covered because karma and jnana can be used in devotional service, but not covered. Like karma. And again, Lord Chaitanya had social obligations when his father died. There's no necessity for him to perform rituals. But sometimes because of social disturbance that will affect our lives and affect the faith of other people in us, sometimes we may have to perform some duties that we don't really have to perform in terms of our purification in one sense. So that's okay because it doesn't cover bhakti. Or jnana, we need to cultivate a little bit. We're not the body. The verses in Bhagavad have nothing to do with bhakti. When the embodied soul passes to part, where does it say anything about Krishna? It could be impersonal, right? There's so many verses like that. It doesn't have, but still they're valuable to us. And so valuable that Prabhupada stressed it because people came to the movement so much in the bodily concept of life that if they didn't understand this basic principle, it'd be very hard for them to practice bhakti. So then, to describe the ultimate glories of devotional service, we may sometimes speak highly of moksha liberation, but we do not intend to acclaim moksha the final goal of spiritual discipline, because in moksha, there's not even a trace of real happiness. It's not the final goal, but it may be very helpful. For example, I have this habit of getting these manuscripts that are incredible before they're ever published in the world. And so that happened to me with Bhakti Sandarbha, which is the ultimate treatise of devotion. It's amazing. And my friend, who was a Sanskrit scholar, was the first person who translated it. And he gave me that text, that manuscript, and my God, I remember one time I gave a class in Mumbai, and Rana said, "Where are you getting these things?" And it's not like it's just so practical and so clear. And then the same thing, a friend of mine, I used to stay at his house. He was a professor, and I had a key to his house. Before I got this Govardhan Hilton, at the age of 75, even in Vrindavan, I had my karma. I never had a place. In America, I practically never had a place. I was wandering around. So one friend, he's a professor, gave me a key, and he was translating the Yoga Sutras. #2 seller on Amazon.com in spiritual books, Eastern spiritual books. Brilliant presentation. And I started to read it. And I saw the value of it. Not that it was possessing bhakti, but it was talking about the mind and how to control the mind. How important is that for bhakti? So it has some relevance as long as you don't misunderstand it as the goal. Otherwise, dharmasvanushtita pumsam viviksena katasya nopedia. Otherwise, dharmasvanushtita, even if you do dharma so carefully and expertly, dharmasvanushtita viviksena nopadiyed yati ritim. But if you don't develop rati or love for Krishna, shrama eva hi kevalam. Shrama means useless, eva only, he certainly, kevalam only, he he say only, certainly, he, useless. But they say, okay, but there's not real happiness. And it's going to give an analogy why there's not real happiness. And it says, when you're sick and you get healthy, is that happiness? I think I'm doing the same things I did before, but that's okay. I'm going to write down the verses. Is it happiness? No, because everyone has that, and they're not happy. It's not happiness, but there's a certain relief. So the so-called happiness, liberation, may be compared to the happiness of not being sick or the enjoyment of deep sleep. In fact, the very term liberation is misnomer, created by illusion. It appeals only to the ignorant. It's not real liberation. Real liberation is described in the Bhagavatam as muktir hitva yata rupam, the first part. Hitva, you give up the false form. Surupena vivastita, and you become situated. Swarup, your own identity. And our own identity is nidher Krishna Das. Jivera Surupa Hoy. The Surupa, the Jiva, Jivera Surupa Hoy. Krishnera Nitya Das. We're servants of Krishna. We are consciousness that's part of the supreme consciousness that's meant for service of love. I always describe this point that God's pleasure is love. But love has to come from outside of you to you. So within God, there is something outside of God for the purpose of love. And that's the living entities. They're receptacles of love. The nature of our soul being energized by the energy of Krishna's bhakti-shastra. This is like tadiya, tadatmaka, one with. Our mind becomes one with this energy of love, like you put iron in fire. So our purpose is to put our consciousness into this energy of Krishna that creates this intensity of love, which is God's pleasure. And we don't try to figure that out logically. Because if you figure it out logically, then there would be reason why God would have to do something. No, it's just God's nature. I once gave a seminar in New York, Can God Be Blue? A study of Krishna, and I began it, Can God be blue? If there is a reason why God's blue, he's not blue, because there's something dictating his nature. So if there's a reason why God has organized the world this way for happiness, he's not God, there's something that's dictating him. We just, by reading Shastra and faith and devotion and sincerity in our heart, Sarvasya Chaham Hidi Sani Vishto Matasmitir Gyanam Aponam Shah, I am situated in everyone's heart, for me comes remembrance, then somehow we can realize what that reality is. But our understanding, because we accept Shastra, and in India people accept Shastra, we can argue Shastra, but our understanding is this is the ultimate reality. Tatatiya Upanishads. Rasa Vai Saha. He is this exchange of love, and we're part of that exchange of love. And unless you're part of that exchange of love, you're not touching real happiness. Because real happiness is Ladini Shakti, God's potency. And the essence of Ladini Shakti is love of God. So that's it. I'm reading, for even a shadow of the Lord's names, if someone chants them by once or merely if they enter the ears, liberation is easily attained. And that's called namabhas. Abhas means a faint reflection. The dawn is Abhas of the sun. So the Abhas of the name, not the full name, Prema, the Abhas. When you can chant, not that you're not sometimes inattentive, but you're not deliberately inattentive. You're trying to remember, and you sit in a place, and you have a time and place for Krishna. And when you have a time and place for Krishna, then you focus your mind. And then you may get a drop. Sometimes when we come at the beginning, I describe these introductory offers to give us faith. Narada Muni had it. He got Saksha Darshan, then he couldn't have it anymore because he wasn't complete in service. And he wouldn't become complete in service if he didn't get it, if he just got it cheaply. So if Krishna gave us ecstasy cheaply, we wouldn't develop the foundational consciousness to actually maintain that. So sometimes he gives us that. I remember coming to the temple, and this is going to be maybe one of my Monday morning greetings, and it's there in the Shastra Prasadam, and it's taste, but it's I don't know what it is. It's taste beyond anything you can imagine. Higher than any sensually egotistical experience. But do we have that all the time now? Because we have to earn it. We have to cultivate our hearts. Because ultimately it's love, and love is volition. We have to develop the desire ourselves. But he may give us this fruit, and that's real happiness. Mataji, you have to leave now. But it's so nice to see you here in the class. I like my little temple here, and you also like my little temple here. I can see how much pleasure you get from coming next door and coming in, right? All right, we like to see you here. Liberation, please understand, is attractive to those whose discrimination is poor. There is evidence, even from the opinions of the same Vedas, Puranas, and other scriptures, that proponents of liberation accept as authorities. So, anyway, I'll read. Purport: in philosophical debate, opposing sides from different schools of thought unavoidably base their opinions on their own assumptions. Buddhists, for example, assume that everything is but momentary and thus unreal, which is a problem in Buddhistic philosophy, because as everything is temporary and unreal, then how do you account for memory? Right? If everything is momentary, and how do you count for memory? Because you're a completely different entity at every moment. I don't really feel, except for bhakti, any of these philosophies make sense. I really don't. Buddhistic philosophy doesn't make sense. But because they have profound understanding of the mind and how the mind works and the discipline of the mind, it has some relevance. But philosophically, as an ultimate metaphysics, it doesn't. You have to develop a tremendous cognitive dissonance to accept Advaita Vedanta and think that every single thing is illusion. There may be misidentification, but there's not that there's things that don't exist. Or they give the example, you see a snake, you see a rope and you think it's a snake. So it's not that nothing exists, you just misidentified it. To think that there's absolutely no distinction. And the classical arguments against this Advaita Vedanta is illusion has to have a basis of illusion, has to have a subject of illusion. And it can't be the jiva, because the jiva is also an illusion. So it has to come down to Brahman. Brahman is the basis of illusion. But if Brahman is the basis of illusion, how can it be Brahman the greatest? And how can it be Advaita when there's Brahman and illusion? The philosophy does not make sense. I'm actually discussing this with someone who kind of was aspiring to take shelter me. It's kind of intellectual, and then it's too heavy for him. Bhakti is too real. So he's giving me all these arguments. I just gave him a simple thing of Shankara, and then there's Ishvara, but Ishvara, it's all word jugglery, absolutely speaking. It's not reasonable. It's not reasonable. The Tvevaham Jatu Nasam, never was the time where I did not exist, nor you, nor in the future shall any of us cease to be. As individuals, why should we deny God? And there can't even be grace in impersonalism, because grace would then have to be an attribute of Brahman. I don't understand the philosophy. I don't understand the yoga philosophy either, and I wrote about that. Because yoga philosophy says that everything is happening in matter, not the soul. But if everything's happening in matter, then what do you have to do with your own liberation? You're just a helpless consciousness observing God dealing with matter. What is our participation in it? If we don't have any thoughts, we don't have any volition, we don't have any will, then what's the use of Shastra? Who's it trying to convince? If all transformations are just happening in the buddhi and the manas, and there's no soul that has transformation, there's no soul with agency. There's a very interesting book written, and the two people who compiled the book, the editors of the book, were one, Professor Matthew Dasty, who became a devotee when we were preaching, Mahamuni Das, and Advaita, the person who I got the manuscript from, and I used to stay at his house. They compiled this for Oxford University Press, Free Will, Agency, and Selfhood in Indian Thought, and all the different conceptions that they have. Okay, one more verse here. Moksha liberation is removal of all miseries, or the stopping of illusory activities, or the self-realization that comes from abandoning the false identification created by Maya. So these are just different ways that people discuss liberation, but not the bhakti way, because it's just negation. And Prabhupada tells that story. There's a person on an island, and we discussed it, right? Pungent, sour, bitter, hot, and salty, but there's no sweet taste. And he leaves the island and he gets a rasgulla. He says, this is amazing. And he tries to explain it to people. So he says, what is this? Well, it's not salty, it's not hot. He couldn't explain it. He can only explain what it's not. So that's the liberation. It explains what it's not, but it doesn't explain what it is. And here the Bhakti Shastras, they're saying that this is very unfortunate if you don't understand what it is. Because what it is ecstasy and happiness. What you're doing is not happiness. It's just relief from pain. And when you get involved in these things, you cheat yourself. At the same time, we'll cheat ourselves if we don't get spiritual discipline. And yoga is spiritual discipline. So we'll cheat ourselves in another way. We should have some spiritual discipline. It's not that, okay, we're just bhaktas and there's no spiritual discipline. But we need to sit down, we need to chant, we need to control our senses. Bhakti and developing devotion, vishya-vini vartante niraharasya deyana rasorajam, developing that higher taste, that relationship with God, the relationship with Guru, relationship with the holy name, the relationship with the Dham. Otherwise, it seems so dry. And we're here in Vrindavan, right? Jai Sri Radhe, right? All these people going around the hill. The ladies here in my ashram, the man left this morning. They went to Vrindakund, the birth of Vrinda. They were in ecstasy. And they cooked a big birthday cake, happy birthday. They just regret they didn't bring something to swimming because the Vrindakund is such a beautiful place. And maybe we have to figure out, we have to choose which places we go. Maybe we'll just go this year to Vrindakund and maybe just have kirtan and sit down and have kirtan and katha there. We usually go, but Murti's here. We have to show her. Well, she's going to stay another few days in Vrindavan.
Yeah.
So she stays another few days in Vrindavan. Then maybe Leela can take her one day out on Parikram to visit some of the other places. Because I don't know if she'll ever be able to come back again, right?
Yes.
Maybe, who knows?
Yes.
Okay, wow. I thought that my hair was giving me power, like Samson and Delilah, but now that it's cut off, I'm still surcharged with energy this was our last Kartik. We had our Damodar Astakam here, but it doesn't end here. Now soon we'll become the Holy Name Retreat, then we'll become the Krishna-katha Retreat, and then, yeah, and then Mayapur. And then in this year in Mayapur, we're planning, when some of the people come in, Murti and her crew and Leela Vilasini Yogamaya, we're planning a Prikram in Calcutta. Now I found out, you'll have to research this, Hemalatarada, that the place where Prabhupada met Bhakti Siddhanta, that's even more beautiful. So you have to find out which place is furthest away and go to that place first and then make your way back to the other place.
They're half an hour away, more or less.
What?
They're half an hour away.
But find out which is closer to the
hotel.
The hotel.
Okay.
Right? So you'll go from one, then you'll come back to the other, and go to the hotel, and then go back to. And you'll leave early in the morning to get to the furthest one. Okay. Hare Krishna. So, Jamuna Jaya, are you there today?
Yes, Raj. I'm here. What a beautiful.
Wait. My small group here wants to see you. And
Hey guys.
oh, okay. I can put it up.
Terrible. Terrible. Such a great class today, Raj. Oh, hey, everybody. There you are. Terrible.
What did you like today?
Oh, there were so many things I like, Maharaj. But the one-liner that I really love is when you said, we are consciousness that is part of the supreme consciousness that is meant for love. That just sort of wrapped up the whole thing. And
That's our Dharma. Prabhupada said Dharma means the quality which cannot be taken away. Right? If it's not sweet, it's not sugar. If it's not wet, it's not water. So Prabhupada gave that service with consciousness, reaching our fruition in service and love. Thank you. Wow. I'm seeing Brahma Tirtha. Haribo.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Nice. Finally have a break where I can hear your class. Usually I have TOVP at this time. I wish I was there, but I'm here. But I really like your analysis of the Buddhist conundrum.
Yeah.
Very well stated.
How would you express it?
Well, I mean, of course, there's so many branches of Buddhism, and some of them even become personal. But what's curious is the Buddhists typically quote the second sermon of the Buddhists, which is called the non-existence of the soul. That's how it's named. But if you read the sermon, it never says that. It's just kind of a hodgepodge, and the way you put it is correct. The Buddhists really are into morality and the mind, but not very deep, at least most Buddhist camps, not all, into the metaphysics of it.
Yeah, there's not a metaphysics. Did you know in Woodstock, there's one of the most beautiful Buddhist temples in the world?
I didn't know that.
A spectacular. I have a niece who lives in Woodstock, and she was getting married. And you know how us Hare Krishnas, we neglected every single function, so I promised my mother that I would go. So I had Jack and Greg drive me up, and naturally I get every place early. So we went to this Buddhist temple. It's beautiful. And then we went in, and they were having one of their ceremonies. It was very beautiful with people chanting, and they gave us a little table, and we sat there with them. And then I made my appearance at the wedding, and then made my disappearance at the wedding.
There is bhakti in Buddhism, and many Buddhists, worship the Buddha like we would worship Krishna and being a dasa, part of Dasa Avatar, I mean, there is a bhakti tradition, and then you have the heavy impersonal tradition. So, they're both threads. It depends on which Buddhist you're dealing with.
But the thing is, every other process is dependent on bhakti, because without grace, you can't ultimately control the mind to the degree that's required on the path of Gyan.
Exactly.
Without grace. But we should make ourselves receptacle of grace. Like Prabhupada said that a Vaishnava is better than a Goswami. But if you're not following, you're not better than a Goswami. Okay, great to see you. And I hope last year you were here and you were able to take prasadam. We brought that special Italian cook from.
Oh, I cannot forget that.
From Vrindavan, who's dedicated.
Yeah.
I should send her a message, actually. Remind me to send her a message. I'll come in one day and yeah. Okay, nice to see you. Gail,
good to see you.
Are you still there? You have any question?
Yes, Maharaj, thank you, I do.
Uh-oh.
No, all simple ones.
Please.
When you said, for one, that when you seeing God before you is superior to seeing him in the mind. Can you explain that again?
I'm just reading that today. It just says it's so much more ecstatic. And it was like a lawyer, they were giving arguments. So the Purva Paksha was, what about these great devotees that they see God personally and then they close their eyes in ecstasy? Doesn't that show that meditation is higher than seeing God? But they say, no, that's just an ecstatic reaction to seeing God. But this is what it says in Shastra. I'm not going to explain it, that it's much more ecstatic to see God with your eyes. And then this whole question, well, can you see God with your eyes? Because God is material. But then the argument comes back, everything is by God's mercy. So he can energize the senses in a spiritual way. You can see him, but he also energizes the mind. So it's all God's mercy. So why not?
Yeah. Okay. Also, when you said that simplicity is a requirement for a Vaishnava, simplicity meaning no desire for personal enjoyment, is that what you meant by simplicity?
Simplicity is...
Or as opposed to duplicity?
I would say simplicity is not being, because we're yukta vairagya, we renounce the things that we can't use for Krishna's service, and different people have different needs, but not keeping more than you need is simplicity, and not being attached to more than you need. It's just like the 10th offense, it says to give up all material attachment. What does that mean? Is it an offense to love your children? It's an offense to have a favorite food? It means to give up things that are in excess of what you need, and different people have different needs. That's how
Okay. Maharaj, the person who, not that I would know the person, but I was just wondering who was the person who translated that particular Bhakti Sandarbha that...
Satyanarayan Baba, a great Vaishnava scholar in Vrindavan and head of the Jiva Institute.
Oh,
I actually employed him. It's a whole story how I actually is the one that empowered him in his studies. I facilitated his studies.
Yeah, I think he's the same person who you had him come speak at a program at Amir Nimai's one time, many years ago.
I remember that. It could be.
Yeah, The Dejection of God, that was a book that he had written, right? Dejection of...
Oh, that was a great one, right? The Yoga of Dejection, a commentary on the first canto. Yes, that was the person. He's actually a very, very accomplished scholar. Very accomplished scholar. Yeah. And you see, I had the original, the Bhakti Sandarbha that they've done now is at a whole other level. And the funny thing is, his main Sanskrit editor is another person who I engaged in study, who helped me with he was working with me as a teacher, and he helped me with my waves of devotion. And the way the waves of devotion was done, his name is Navadweep, and he's also a great Vaishnava scholar. He would come into my office, and I would read a paragraph of the Nectar of Devotion. And each paragraph exactly coincided with a verse in the Bhakti-rasa-mrita Sindhu. Prabhupada took one verse and made one paragraph. So it was like a real easy template. So he would read the verse, and then he would look at the Sanskrit or Hindi commentary and read it to me, and I would see what else there was in the commentary to make it even more clear. It was the way Prabhupada wrote the Bhakti-rasa-mrita Sindhu, especially the later 3 chapters, is he didn't think it really was so relevant for the devotees in one sense, not that he didn't think it was relevant, but he did it very quickly. He really stressed the first wave. Yeah, and then the second wave has the different examples, et cetera. But okay, thanks, Gail. Anybody else like to say?
I think you'll want people to understand that, when you said that love, if there's a reason that God is blue, then he's not blue. But I think what you meant, he's not God.
Yeah, then he's not God. Yes. Thank you, Gail. Boy, you're such a good editor. Yeah. If there's a reason why he's blue, then he's not God, because there's something causing his existence. So therefore, you can't logically say why God is the way God is, in one sense. Okay, I'm looking at the list of all the nice people that graced the class with gratitude. Thank you all. One more person wants to say hello. It's okay. Okay. So thank you all. I see all the names, and thank you all for coming. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubheva cha patitanam